we're here with world champ Stevan Micic and his father, who's going to be giving us some wisdom into what it's like to be a wrestling parent, to parent a world champion, caliber wrestler. Hopefully we're going to learn some things that we can implement. I have a 3-year-old and a 2-year-old, so I'm a little bit ways off before, getting them rolling. But, I would like to get some wisdom. I don't necessarily want to start from, I don't want to make all the mistakes if I don't have to. Right.
Yep.
So, yeah, I guess I guess I want to start off with not necessarily the beginning, but you just posted a video, Stevan, about you going to Russia.
Yeah, I did. I went to Dagestan when I was 17 years old. I went for 3 weeks to Dagestan and Chechnya. So it's pretty crazy. Yeah.
How are you letting your kid go to Russia for 3 weeks? What was that all about?
Well, yeah, I did my research as far as becoming a student of the sport. I never wrestled. I was a jiu-jitsu guy early on, before anyone knew what Brazilian jiu-jitsu was. Before they had the first UFCs and things like that. So I was into the combat thing a little bit. He brought a flyer home, wanted to wrestle. So anyway, how did we get to there is I knew that I knew about the Russians. I knew about that the best wrestlers in the world at that time were the actual old Soviet Union, the Arsen Fadzaevs, the Bela Glazovs, and those guys. And, you had your sprinkle of Americans in there, like your Dave Schultzes and your John Smiths and your Kurt Angles and who else, right? So anyway, when knowing that, I know their system was really good, and I knew Dagestan was a really good place. So when he had that opportunity, I knew he was going with some of the USA team.
Yeah, it wasn't like I was like unsupervised or something like that.
Well, you were unsupervised, but
it was like a USA's like developmental thing they started. At least they had it going for like a small amount of time, and I was like we were like the first wave of guys. It was like me, Aaron Pico, Snyder, and I think like who else? Bo Nickel, like a couple guys like that. Zahid, like just some young guys who were like top in the country.
They didn't go with you at that time.
Yeah, no, but just me and Aaron Pico went, and but it was something. Yeah, I knew that like that was my favorite. All my like people I grew up watching were from like Dagestan, Ossetia, and it's kind of like somewhere like I wanted to go and train at. But it was crazy because nobody knew where that was at all. People thought that was like some really like. Everyone knew about like Afghanistan and like stuff like that. So like, they're like, where are you going? Like they didn't know where that was.
Yeah. Only till recently we know about Dagestan through all these UFC fighters. And
and now it's like this, like unmatched place for combat sports. And everyone thinks it's this like, secret sauce formula type thing that you just go to, but they just know they know how to make champions. They have good camp. But I mean, I was only there for 3 weeks, but it was tough. I know Roman Bravo Young just went there, and he had a rough. I guess he liked it, but he said he was like, if I can do this, I can do anything in life. Being there for at least 2 weeks.
Yeah, in fact, Stevan called me after week 1 or something, crying back then, basically, and saying, "Get me the hell out of here," And it was interesting.
I was young too, so it was like really hard. Like then I went back later, and then I was like matured, and I had traveled a lot more, and as someone who got better at wrestling, understand how it works. So I'd be like really excited to go back again one day. But
yeah, I mean, I remember Kerry Kolat telling a story about how he was at some international tournament, and like the Russians, like they only did cold showers, and he's like, these people, it's not the wrestling that's just tough. Their whole life's tough. So they have a different level of toughness. It's not just the training. Like we've pushed ourselves, maybe thrown up in practice, but like their general level of living is like
much harder.
It's a poor country, they're in a situation where they don't have the things that we have, I remember Stevan did you have your laptop with you? And these kids were all like around him looking at the laptop and wanting to see what he had on there and how he uses it and things. This was back in those days. And so, just the technology, cold water, they probably didn't have a whole lot of hot water, or the energy was expensive. So that's why they took the cold showers. It's more,
So you were saying that you did jujitsu. Did you do jujitsu before Stevan even started wrestling? Like, or did
I did when I was his age. Like when I was 27, 28, I was doing jujitsu. So I'm 62 now, so it's kind of like I was doing it way before he was born. He was born when I was 34 or 35. So, yeah.
All right. And I guess Stefan, did you wrestle? I mean, did you jiu-jitsu at all or not really?
Well, actually, I didn't do anything. I did like I didn't really do anything. I did like karate for like a couple months. Just like I did nothing that was any solid other base in anything than wrestling. When I started, I was the one who brought it up to my dad. So it's kind of really weird that I just was like, yeah, I want to wrestle.
In fact, I was kind of leaning towards golf for him and also to teach him jiu-jitsu just to take care of himself, you know?
Yeah.
So I love to golf. I thought maybe I could caddy for him someday instead of this thing, you know? But I would take him out to the golf course. We were living in Arizona at the time. He was born in Arizona. And I would take him out to the course, and he was 18 months to 2 years old, and he was hitting the ball. And the guys, is that the next Tiger Woods? I'm going, I don't know, but if we worked hard, I'm sure if we would have worked.
Maybe in a different sport.
yeah, maybe he's not a big golfer, but if it would have been soccer or something, maybe if we would have spent this much time and energy, it'd have been fun. But
yeah,
he brought a flyer home, said he wanted to wrestle, so
Yeah.
I wasn't going to take him out of that, give him a shot. My wife said he's not going to make it. He's too soft, and he's such a nice little boy. He's got two sisters, and
It is what it is.
right.
Yeah.
Yeah, I guess. Well, what age were you when you started? You were like,
I was
middle
like
school?
7 turning 8.
Okay.
I was like, yeah, I was in
And it
third
was
grade,
probably in the
second
month
grade.
of March, April. because
freestyle.
Freestyle season.
I
is
started
the
in
first.
freestyle.
Okay. And did you go all year round, like from kind of 7 all the way through, or?
No, I didn't do all year round till I got to maybe middle school.
Okay.
Middle school. So like
maybe 6th grade.
So like after 5th grade, once I got to middle school, then I did all year round. But I didn't. So 2nd grade, 3rd grade, 4th grade, and 5th grade, I did my first 4 years of wrestling. I took the summers off. So I
Okay.
wrestled freestyle from like March till like May or June, and then it was like done until like folk style started.
But I can give a tip to a lot of these parents that are talking. What we did was a lot of these kids and parents are thinking that there's some magic somewhere in some other club and stuff like that. Okay. So, and they jump around. And one of the things that frustrated me was I knew that there was no secret pill you can take to become successful in life, because I had businesses and I was in work and I kind of was a little older and wiser. And I knew that you just stay the course. And if you're in a good environment that's fertile for growing, you stay there. And what I see is parents jumping all over the place. We never did that. And that's why Stevan continued to grow, because there's thousands of different moves you can learn in wrestling, right, Stevan?
Yep.
There's thousands of different things and 1,000 different ideas, but there's 5 or 6 or 7 fundamental things you got to learn,
Yeah.
You got to stay in your stance, those kind of things. You got to stay strong on a leg, and you can learn that anywhere. You just got to stay the course where you're at. So I know you're running a club and stuff. So that frustrated me. I saw parents jumping all over the place. They never got any better. And they want to holla. Well, we stayed the course and we just became students of the sport and worked with the coach that we had. Right, Stevan?
Mm-hmm.
And would you add to that, anything to that? Because I mean, that was important to our development, because Stevan got good really quick.
Yeah.
And like in his first year, he lost. In second year he never lost a state title, freestyle or folk style, little kids. And we're a 1-class state, all the way through. So it was kind of like, it was because good coaches, but also staying in one place and then just doing extra and above and beyond and asking questions, staying after practice, doing those things, right?
Yep.
So I'd recommend parents, if there's any parents listening to this thing, is, we got them all the time. They come and ask me for my advice, and I give them this advice. And then I know at the club that Stevan's from or whatever, they leave, and then they come back, then they want to go with Joe, and they want to go with this guy because he can teach them the tilt, and that guy over there. And all of a sudden the kid's all over the place, and there's no fundamentals that they're learning. And it's a bunch of moves they're learning, but they're not really learning how to stay in good core positions and not learn how to win.
Yeah. I mean, I even had a little bit of that when I went to college. Every college has like 2, 3, whatever coaches. And I remember I was really good at the underhook. I worked the underhook all through high school. Right. I got really good at it, got to college, and I had trouble doing the underhook on better opponents. And instead of going and figuring out what was wrong, how to make the adjustment, I went to a different coach. And he was like, yeah, I'll start doing inside tie. So now I got 2 years left of college. I'm going to try to get an inside tie good enough to win a national title, when I should have been just making adjustments with the things I've been doing for 6 or 7 years.
Great.
That's exactly what we're talking about here. It's always tweaking and fixing the things where you're at with the people that you're with. And so, I would have never, if I'd have taken you, I'd said, hey, let's just adjust a couple of things here. You've been spending your whole life in this position. You're really strong here, and it's a dominant control position. We need to just figure out what's going on here and open this thing up a little. And probably could have spent 2 hours with you. We could have figured it out. You'd probably done a lot better.
Yeah, definitely. And not only with the club stuff, like I was saying with moves, like, doing tilts. I mean, like Spencer Lee did tilts from 7 years old, the same armbar reinforced tilt, whatever.
Nothing changed, and everyone knew it was coming, right?
Yeah. So I'm definitely on board with that. And I tell parents, like, obviously, like you guys said, I run a club, and I tell them, hey, whether you're with me or somebody else, go find what's best, somebody you can trust, and then stay with it. If you have to spend a month figuring out the best place for your kid, go in a couple different places, figuring out, but find a program you trust in, find a coach you trust. And if you trust them, as things come up, you can always, say what your issues are. Hey, I need a better practice partner. Can you get somebody else in here? I need, my kid's struggling with a certain position. And I think a lot of times, like, the parents that are more involved, like you, they're trying to solve it themselves, kind of. And they're like, if they don't trust in the coach that they have, they're going to be looking towards other parents a lot of times. I don't know if you guys seen that before, but like they see one kid doing well, and they'll kind of like try to mimic what that parent's doing maybe, and then kind of bounce around a little bit.
Yeah, I mean, Stevan grew up here in this club here, Region Wrestling with Alex Sertzis and all, but we know Stevan came out of there, Jason Sertzis came out of there, Jesse Mendes came out of there. I mean, they didn't run around and go places. They stayed in the same system, right?
Yeah, once we were locked in.
Once he got really good, he'd say, Alex,
yeah, basically,
I need to go up to so-and-so club. There's somebody in there I'm going to work out for the day and stuff. But then Stevan come back again and train there, get all his coaching. He might go there just to live wrestle somebody,
But I always came back to the same place and the same practice and the same structure and the same school of wrestling. Yeah.
I guess Stefan, when you went to college, did you find a main coach at Michigan that you could kind of fall back on, or what was it like?
I think like the thing with Michigan that I did really well was that my dad stayed pretty involved with me, but it's tough when, I had like Bormet, then Bormet had just kind of taken the head coaching job, like kind of shortly after, like I was there. So it was kind of hard with Sean to move out. And then, everyone, the way that our structure coaching staff was, it was just like, they felt like, even though we had a lot going on, it sometimes felt really like everyone was like spread real thin. And it sometimes was hard to like, we brought in Sergey Beloglazov to coach Cliff Keen after Andy Rovat left. So then it just kind of felt like that he had his say in what he thought was right. And then the coaches had to say what they thought was right. And so there was a lot of things going on. There was a lot of cooks in the kitchen, and you could kind of feel, or I felt the same way where like, I did a lot of good things because I was a really good wrestler. So I could do a lot of things really good, but there were certain things that I did great. And sometimes I'd be on the great stuff and then I get away from that and do stuff that I was like good at or like really good at. And I just was kind of like always, I felt like adjusting and changing kind of how I wrestled, at least mentally. And like, I had some things that you like, oh, that's how Stevan wrestles. But there was things like, how I was tying up with a person, what shots I was trying to look for, the way that I was holding in position, the way that I was trying to do things. I changed that so much while I was in college, and it made it very difficult for me to like, when it comes to winning a national title versus like, for me, I had a great college career. I was NCAA finalist and 3-time All-American and a Big Ten champ. You did pretty much everything you could do except win the tournament. But when looking at someone that like maybe I could have been a 2 or 3-time national champ with just being consistent on what it was, and nothing like anything crazy. Like they were winnable at the time, but it was still where it was like that. And then, I come back and leave Michigan and I go home with my dad for 2 years and end up improving by a lot. And the first year back home, I win a bronze medal at the World Championship, my first international world medal. And then I go on to become a world champion a year later. So it's like, it's just like foundation setting that lock it in and what your system is and what makes you great. the things improve the areas you're not in great at, and keeping those fundamentals because you're an individual. And I think sometimes it's like you got to figure ways, like little things to add in, but everything always circulates back to what makes you great.
Well, yeah, I think what Stevan's saying, and I think that like even with colleges, I think someone who's doing it really well and it's proven is Penn State. They develop their guys. They take a guy like a Stevan, and Stevan's then a 3 or 4 time national champion. It's because they break it down and they take what he's doing and they don't try to make him another wrestler. They let Stevan be Stevan and they just fine tune it, like with your underhook, you know? Hey,
Yeah.
Better than anybody else. Let's figure out a way to make things happen. And so that's the key. Like if we're talking about colleges and things like that, they get so scattered. They run one practice for everybody. All right, let's go hand fight, you know. But you know,
sometimes
you
it's
need
like,
to break it down like 3 athletes per coach, and each athlete should have a developmental plan. Like you need to work on your underhooks and you need to get off bottom. Okay. We're going to work on it every single week. Every practice is going to be run for you. I'm just saying.
But more than that is like, I think just to keeping it simple to like, you know, whatever it is, it's like understanding that athletes, what they need. And sometimes the athlete can think because they had a bad practice or they had bad matches, or maybe that, you know, they're struggling because, you know, what they're doing that they think they're usually doing really good at maybe isn't working what they need to do. It's not that they're still on the right path of what they need to do. They just need to change a couple things around that, right? Like your underhook, right? Just because you know, maybe you were struggling finding ways to get to it doesn't mean you just stop using your underhook and go over there to an inside tie or a 2-on-1. Like that's kind of how it feels in college sometimes. It's like for not just for you, but for everybody.
So right?
How you want to defend, how you want to, you know, how you want to, you know, pace your matches right. Like, do I want to be so physical? Do I want to not be? How do I kind of hold, you know, it's a tough thing. There's a lot of things to juggle, but if you could stay more true to yourself
and who you are, and what you do,
your coaching, and that you guys are always back to your foundations, it's going to always work for the better versus trying a bunch of other things.
You know, I mean, you look at wrestling, you know, it's not really that complicated. I always tell Stevan it's not rocket science. I mean, you want to keep somebody off your legs, get in a really good stance, down block with your head, and you keep your hands in front of you. And like if you just lock down that way with your hands in front, your head down, your legs back, and you don't get moved out of your position, it's going to be hard. They're going to have to hit something really high level to get to something. It's when you get all this flailing, hand fight. Well, the guy reaching up, the guy drops underneath and takes a shot. Well, then you're getting out of position, and then, you know, but if you want to really break it down, if somebody stays in, if Stevan doesn't want to give anything to, you know, to his opponent, if he wants to lock him out, he can lock him out totally for 2 minutes straight. That guy's got to create a lot of action to make something happen, right?
Yeah.
So if you think about that, is if you teach a guy just that, stay in good position, block out. Now that's half of it. Now you got to figure out how to go get some offense. It's not that complicated, but
yeah,
in the midst of all of this, you're reaching up, slapping, moving, then openings happen and you get out of position and shots are taken. So, but back to fundamentals, back to, you know, that, but you were talking about parents.
Yeah. You know, I like everything you guys are saying because, you know, I tried to do something similar, like youth, middle school, kill the fundamentals, single, double, high crotch, fixing your position, down blocking, go behinds. And then as they get older, you know, I actually did what you guys said, where I have my 3 coaches. Hey, this coach is going to show an underhook series. This coach is going to show a Russian tie series. This coach is going to show a collar tie series. Split up into the group that you think is going to fit your style the best.
That's perfect.
Yeah.
Well, I mean, it's true, right? Not everyone's Stevan's not going to use an underhook very often. He's going to go to seatbelt maybe, but that's not his thing, or he's not going to be an inside control guy, right? So,
yeah.
And
I guess like through your career, like, did you ever want to quit? Did you ever want to break? Was there any battle with keeping you motivated or anything like that?
I think that there was times in my career where I felt like I didn't want to keep moving like forward, or like sometimes I just needed a break. And so I think everybody thinks that like way when they say like, I want to quit or whatever, when they get down on themselves. but I don't think it was ever a serious, like, I'm done with this,
And
because
it's more of when things aren't going good.
yeah, it's more when things aren't going good. So when things are going good, like really good, then I don't think that ever goes across anyone's mind in something. I think the main thing was understanding that the patience is really a key thing that it's hard to teach, but understanding that patience and progression is something like you just kind of have, this is part of the learning curve. And that way you got to see your way out, the light out of the tunnel, and how you deal with those situations.
Or Stevan likes to call it growth mindset. Talk about
Yeah,
that.
I think having a growth mindset is very important. It's just where you're focusing on just the daily improvement of the whole, being thankful and grateful for what your opportunities to do this, and then learning from those things to where you're kind of just making data points of like these losses and the things you do good, to kind of just keep propelling yourself forward, right? Breaking bad habits, making new habits. But just because you have incidences where things don't go your way, just learning from those instead. But like learning from that and then not trying to repeat that again, And so you're just constantly like, hey, this is an opportunity for me, and like trying to take the positives out of every situation if you can. Be critical on your situations that didn't go well. Be critical, but don't let it burn you out and make it negative on yourself. And don't take away from your abilities, if that makes sense.
And you also have to understand that if you're a scientist and or an inventor, and you're trying to invent something, you're going to maybe try something 1,000 times before you finally figure out that's a light bulb for Edison, right? You don't do everything on the first try, and there's going to be failure along the way. You read Michael Jordan's book, he talks about how many shots he missed when he needed to make, he said he succeeded in the book. He said he succeeded because he failed. Okay. So you have to fail in order to succeed, because your failures, then you missed a problem on the test, right? So then you got to go figure out, how do I get the right answer for that? So then
I guess practically, when Stevan wrestled at a tournament, and he maybe lost a match or even did well, did you guys have like a routine or a way that you would talk to him to encourage him to have that growth mindset? I mean, did you ever yell at him? Did you ever,
yeah, of course. I mean,
kind of the balance of all that.
My yelling never really came to him during tournaments, after losses. My yelling came at practice when I pushed him as hard as I could.
So every single day, pretty much.
Yeah.
No, we have a good relationship though.
No,
to understand, like, from my point, it was like, I don't feel like sometimes I do feel like he's yelling at me, but I know that that's just like, he's just an intense person. And it's like, I obviously know he cares. And like, I would way rather have somebody care about me and maybe be kind of harsh than like my own pride being like, oh, well, like, I think that I'm right and I don't want to be wrong. Well, it's like, well, what's he wasting his time telling me this for then? If he cares that much, he's pouring into me. So,
but I think you have to understand yelling too. Like, some parents yell like this: "You're a piece of whatever. You're lousy. You suck." Okay. That's yelling. Like, you just let that nobody beat you. Okay. That's actually degrading your kid and his mental, like emotionally, you're scarring your kid. I love my kid. I've loved him ever since he was, born. So I love him more than the sport. Okay. So that's important to me. I never wanted to scar him emotionally. So what I told, so when I yell at him, it was more like, hey, we've talked about this decision before and you've worked it. You didn't do it this time. We're going to go back and we're going to do it over and over and over again until you get it right. Correct? Mm-hmm. So that kind of yelling, that's more like a coach. But I'm not his like, you're a loser, you're this, that's not what you want to do, right?
Mm-hmm. No, you don't. I think, that kind of adds on, because sometimes parents think that because they're investing themselves in yelling that
they can talk like that,
that they are able to, like, oh, well, if I care about you, so I'm going to like be around, that's the misconception, is like, where I understood that my dad is only building me up because he believes in me and he wants to just keep compounding me, versus like, instead of just like, he's not never degrading me. So I already knew that though. So But then at that point,
But then it's about like, you didn't do that move right. Well, I did. Well, you didn't. It was that kind of thing. It wasn't about him as a person or that he was weak, didn't have courage, didn't try hard enough. I know he wanted to win. I knew he was trying as hard as he could,
But we've come a long way. I mean, there's learning curve and there's things that, him doing things and me doing things. I spent a lot of time as a kid around wrestling and practicing at home and we both really liked the sport a lot. So
Now, as you got older, so you're talking about growth mindset, like if as Stevan got older, did you have him try to figure out the problems himself, or are you kind of solving it with him? Like, are you guys using each other to kind of help solve these match problems?
When he was little, it was like I was solving him with coaches. I always knew that I wasn't the smartest guy in the room.
But we always had really good coaches that understood fundamentals.
I always saw the problem. I was always able to identify what the problem was. I didn't always know how to fix it. So I always surrounded myself, don't ever be the smartest guy in the room, So, and you should always get people that are, smarter than you. And so ultimately I became a student of it. I could figure most of it out myself. But even to this day, a lot of the problems that we're solving are Stevan solving them. But I put him in that environment where I challenge him enough to where he really starts thinking like, hey, what do you mean? What do you mean you don't have an answer for this? Well, did you just get taken down here? Well, you don't just get taken down here. I mean, there's got to be an answer somehow, bodily, mechanically. So then in a half an hour later, he has an answer. Because I frustrate him enough to really start digging deep.
Yeah, but I also want to make one big difference here. That with my dad, as difference to many other dads, majority other dads or parents in wrestling, is my dad is a student of the sport. Most parents are not. So most of these parents are not qualified to coach their kids the way that my dad is able to coach me. Reason being, I'll say this. First off, I started wrestling when I was 8. My dad pretty much started wrestling and learning about the sport when I was 8. So he learned the sport of wrestling through me, being around coaches who taught him the fundamentals, just like I learned the fundamentals. He then became fanatical about the sport of wrestling, went to YouTube and watched thousands and thousands and thousands of hours of YouTube. For the last years, he's maybe watched every day, like growing up, he watched maybe 6 to 10 hours a day of wrestling on his free time. Like, I'm not joking. When I came over for practice, we talked about it, and we had dial-up. So it would be like 3 matches or 4 matches that he would find of the best wrestlers in the world. So his of understanding positioning and understanding what good wrestling looks like started from like multiple-time world champions and Olympic champions. So that was my dad's understanding of the sport of wrestling. So as he was going, his level of wrestling grew very high. So he wasn't just like a guy who just like came off and I'm a dad and I'm going to just coach you kind of through my past experience of wrestling and what I think wrestling is, that it should be for my son.
Because I had none.
He had none. So there's no biasy of wrestling, of like what there is to be a state champ or a national champ, or I got to push you through the workouts that I went through when I was in high school or in college, or you need to go through the grind that I did. So there's a very big differentiating factor between my dad and many other parents that want to say that they are coaching their son, or they're helping their son, or trying to be involved in that process, right? Because my dad's kind of an outlying factor for the most part. And I think it's very hard to say that in my dad to talk to parents about being involved in practices, because most parents don't understand the level of wrestling from that side of it as the coach in the room will understand it. Where now my dad is in that space where most every coach in college and around the world understand and respect my father's wrestling IQ and understand, please sit down, help us out in this position. High level wrestling, world medalists, Olympians, Olympic champions. It'll ask my dad for help on things, not just me. So there's a difference between that and then some guy coming into the room who, wrestled in high school and, now has a son that's 12 years old and saying like, yeah, he's involved in his kid's journey. He wants to help his kid, just like how my dad wasn't like, I wasn't anything either. And he wasn't as well, like from what he knew. But it's just like knowing how to kind of keep that, because you're a coach and parents want to come into the room, and understanding how to, I guess, gauge the parent and son's relationship. Right.
Yeah.
And understanding that in the wrestling room, that not all of these dads are going to be coming in with that mindset of like, there are going to be some parents that are like my dad that have that mindset of like trying to grow their kid and pour into their kid. And they start understanding it through their own journey instead of like leading their son along the way, like how they try to do it and try to say, hey, you got to do this. You got to do this. You got to do this. Listen to me. Don't listen to your coach, when it's like the coach is the one you probably should listen to. So that can be difficult in the sport of wrestling.
Yeah, and I don't ever remember, to be honest with you, even when I didn't know that much, I don't ever remember saying that coach doesn't know what they're talking about. Ever. Or don't listen to that coach. I might say, hey, there's a place for what that coach is talking about, right?
Yes.
But in this particular situation, let you think about it. Do you think you should do that? Or you should do that? Yeah, you should do it when this happens, but not then. So not everything fits at the right time. So, you're in a situation, I get it. I've been in thousands of rooms over the years and with thousands of parents and thousands of coaches like yourself. Like, one of the tips I give parents is stay where you're at. And not only for wrestling, but stay there if you're with a person that you feel is aligned with your morals and your character. There's more to life than just wrestling. So people we were always around, we liked being around them. They were good people. They were either believers or, and they're going to help Stevan become a man.
Yeah.
They're going to tell him the truth about life and how to respect others and how to, right?
Mm-hmm.
That's important too. Now, you're not just going to club to learn to wrestle.
So,
I mean, that's part of it, right?
Yeah.
Anything you want to add?
Oh, I want to hear what he's got to say.
Yeah, no, I think that's super important, because your kid's going to spend 2 hours a day for the rest of their life with this coach or with this group of guys. And if they're not, holding themselves to a high standard, I want my coaching staff, myself, I want my kids to not find all this fault in their coaches, where the coaches aren't swearing at them, or, they're leading a good life. I want my kids to look up to me and my other coaching staff as role models. Oh, I want a life like that, not just,
yeah,
can I get good at wrestling or not? Because,
yeah. Well, my what I would say then to lead on to what I was just saying and what my dad was just saying is for parents to kind of learn the sport of wrestling with their kid and through the coach that they're working with. That way that relationship is better molded, instead of looking at it like, I don't want to, like, the parent either doesn't want to learn enough about the sport because he's just because you're taking your kid to practice doesn't mean you're and doing this for your son doesn't mean you're truly invested in this, in your, interest in the sport of wrestling, the deep mechanics of it. So I think like trying to parents just being invested in the sport, like it's their kid, when it's their time and their kid wants to learn it, try to learn more about what actually goes into the sport. Like, I know you don't have to be like my dad. I don't think many are going to be that obsessive with wrestling as my dad was. Most won't, but it's not that. It's just the idea of like, hey, if I'm going to spend time with my kid and trying to do this, I want to learn more about like what they're actually doing in practice every day. I want to learn more about how they're doing it and how their coach is teaching them and what I want to learn. So I'm learning from the coach, and then that way the relationship's better built versus just saying, hey, you're going to show up. I'm just going to be here. I'm not going to watch practice. Maybe I will watch practice a little bit, and I'm going to yell at my kid when he gets done with it.
Yeah. You see,
and
we never blamed the coach one time.
And it's the coach's fault. It's the wrestlers who move
Not
around.
One time did I get in an argument with the coach. Not one time did I get an argument with the coach. So parents, if you're listening to me, if you're arguing with the coach, you got to look, you're pointing your finger this way, but there's three fingers pointing back at you. When you point your finger, there's three fingers pointing back. It's probably you. And I can speak that from experience, because it's, what? The coach is doing everything they can to help. And, we're not perfect. We're humans. We're going to make mistakes. But usually there's not one situation, whether it was Greg Larson, whether it was Alex, whether it was the coaches in college, they were always doing what was best for Stevan, what they thought was best. And we're a team. You got to, we made some little disagreements on situations, but there was never any fighting ever, or like, my kid's not good enough. Well, you know what? Your kid needs to be a better student. And you need to maybe be a better parent and help your kid do homework at home. Why don't you come with your notebook and listen to the coach, take notes of what the coach taught, and then after practice, go spend 2 hours with your kid like I did, and do the things the coach showed you. And then your kid will be prepared by doing their homework for the next quiz when he gets to class again. That's how I ran it. I went to practice, sat down with my notebook. I listened to you. I took notes. I didn't try to change anything. And Stevan, we went back home, we took a rest, ate something. Let's go down to a little mat to 10 by 10, and let's do what coach showed us. Now that's a parent that cares, that helps him do his homework like you would if your kid comes home with a math assignment and you help him practice your math problem with little flashcards.
Yeah, what's the difference of that?
It's the same thing that parents,
Exactly the same
if your parent isn't doing that, I'm going to tell you right now, the parent shouldn't be in the room. Just leave the kid and don't say one word. If you're not willing to invest your time in taking what the coach is teaching and then go show the flashcards, 2 + 2 is 4, 3 + 3 is 6, and practice and practice and practice. That's all we did. That's all we did. We took what the coaches were teaching, how they taught it. We went home, and then as I learned other techniques, we talked it over with coaches, and we were together.
You build that way.
We build that way, but it's never you against them. Help your kid by doing homework with your kid off the mat. Okay?
Yeah.
That gets to the point I said. Is you're
back to
learning with your kid at the end of the day.
Then come back to class and be the smartest kid in the class because you did. Does that make sense? Or am I a little too hardcore there?
No, I think it makes total sense. It's
if doing flashcards with your kid for an hour and a half is too hardcore, I don't know what.
But you see what I'm saying is they just want to show up, yell at you, yell at the kid, but not put the time in. And we were, like I said, it's like, it's not me against you. It's like we're a team together. We're trying to get better. Coach is teaching front headlock, how to get out of it. You taught that. You worked on it for that practice. We're going to go work on it at home over and over and over and over and over and over again till he masters that position. That's all.
I think it's a great way to show love to your kid. Whether you've ever wrestled before, whether you don't even care about the sport in general, it's like that's even showing more love. Is I'm doing something just like you might with your spouse or whatever. I don't even care about this, but I'm doing it for you.
Yeah.
And I'm here for you. I'm here to help you out. And I think ideally, if you have the time, you're showing as much love as you can to your kids and showing interest in what they are doing and trying to guide them. My kids are definitely going to wrestle when they're younger, but if they decide to do something different, I got to take it upon myself to show I care about that and to help them through that.
No, for sure.
And yeah, I think that my biggest thing that I'm getting from you guys is, just if you're a parent and you want to help your wrestler, make sure you're showing love to them and be as invested as you can. Another thing too, this is not, I guess, one of my side notes is if you haven't wrestled before and you're a parent, it's hard. So it's tough to I even remember my assistant coach. He hasn't been training for a while, going in once a week at college. And he would just be pushing you super hard, yelling at you, be like, oh, why are you not trying hard enough? And then he went and trained to compete again. And he was like, man, I forgot what it was like to train. This is tough. This is really hard. So if you've never wrestled before, I think
I know. That's our argument half the time is he has a lot of this is what it is now. It's like he has a very good mind and eye for things and he can see things that I can't see, but I can feel things that he can't. So it's like we have to meet in the middle a lot of times. It's like he's on to something with what he sees, but this is not practical. And then I'm like, okay, if I can maybe do something like this, if this tries, and then all of a sudden we got something. But it takes a lot of test, trial and error. But that's where we're at now in our career, very far along. But towards the end.
Stevan doesn't give himself enough credit. He's got a great feel and he knows a lot. It's just that the intricacies and all don't really interest him. He doesn't want to spend time watching film, breaking film down. He's never done it, never's going to do it. But
that's not my thing. He's so good at it. And I would be like, what do I do without him if he does it? But I don't, it just isn't my interest. Yeah. I don't know. I've never really been a big, I like the mechanics and feel, and I like theory of wrestling a lot when I'm talking about movement and body.
He likes talking through it.
But it's hard for me to go in and see something and how it works from the mechanics. From watching it. It's oh boy. But once I know it, I like talking about it. But.
No, he likes solving. I think the biggest relationship and most fun we've had is solving problems.
Problem solving.
Is that two scientists in a laboratory, like John Smith talks about being a scientist trying to figure out that low single. When he's talking about, well, it's kind of like us trying to figure out a position. It's not necessarily whether it's offense, defense, or whatever it is. And that's pretty cool. When we do that, sometimes it's with 3 people or 4 people. We'll have like a think tank and a whiteboard, and I usually facilitate it because I know what I'm trying to accomplish. And I'm usually the guy that comes up with the least amount of stuff, but I get the answers, not because of me, but they come up with the answers. You see what I'm saying? I know what has to be done to win. It's that he and Alex and whoever we have in the room with us, right?
Yeah.
They come up with, okay, if we do this and this, we're going to win. And it's like, okay, how do we do that? I don't know. Right now, it's, then it's all of a sudden. So it's kind of like, yeah, I would recommend that for coaches with your athletes too. Like as they progress and they get older and stuff, it's that process of like working together. There's, it's what feels comfortable for him, what he likes to do, and what he feels at the time when he's wrestling somebody, along with what I'm seeing. And then it's kind of like this blend of ideas and things. And, they say 2 minds or 2 heads are better than one. It's right. But then ultimately, no matter what we come up with, 2, 3 people, he has to execute. And that's what I'm really proud of him is his execution. Yeah. Is once all that comes together and he agrees upon something, he's able to actually get it done.
Yep.
That's not easy. And I can never do what he does.
Yeah. There is something about a wrestler who who's got it, and there's something about just somebody who knows I've always been the kid, I guess. Like, I don't know if I've been the kid that I would assume that, but I think it's like I've always been someone who doesn't give up, and I'm always I'm competitive, and I'm not like the kind of competitive, like I'm going to throw a tantrum if I lose kind of guy. I'm very but I'm the kid that will work through everything, and I'll just keep coming and coming and coming and get back up on my feet and get back up on my feet and get back up on my feet always. So, so then when it comes to these workouts, that I'd always be the one who can execute when it matters and try to do things when it matters, because I won't give up. I'll keep going. I won't quit. And so problem solving, working through things. And for me, maybe because at a young age, I realized when in middle school, I always said, people always say, what was your favorite thing about wrestling? This is an answer that was funny thinking about it now, is like an answer that an adult would give. But I gave this answer at a very young age. I remember being like in 7th grade and doing a project, like, why do you like wrestling so much? Or people, like a teacher or somebody asked me, and I was like, oh, I like the fact that when I do something wrong in a match, I lose. I go to practice and I fix it, and then I come back, and when it works and I win from it, it's the best feeling ever. Like, what kind of kid answers like that? But that's what I love about wrestling, is like it's there's such a reward from getting back up, working through it, problem solving, never quitting, just keep moving. And it's a rewarding sport when you do, because of how much you've sacrificed and worked. So.
Yeah, we talk about that. You asked about him losing before, and like for an example, when there was some things. He lost a little state title when he was younger from a front headlock position. Never got scored on again from a front headlock because how much did we work that for like a year after that? So you take those losses, those things that go wrong, and you make those your strengths. The losing to DeSanto. Stevan has a video on his thing on DeSanto. He lost to him once. He was sick. He shouldn't have wrestled. Whatever. Those are. It doesn't matter. He wrestled. He got beat up. It was the biggest beating he'd ever gotten in his whole career. Period. Since he was probably a beginner first year. But then after that, beating the crap out of him and controlling him just in a couple months and never losing to him again. You see what I'm saying? It's kind of like taking that little situation. Okay, we got to make an adjustment here, working on it, figuring out, and then all of a sudden it's like, and that's the fun part of it. It's like, like that. I would have loved to have worked with you with your underhook situation. Too bad I wasn't around, or Stevan. We would have figured that out. Might have been a national champ.
I know, man. I beat some All-Americans, but couldn't get it done at the tournament,
Yeah, because you were going inside control. Come on.
Yeah, I was doing the wrong stuff.
I'm just kidding. I don't know.
All right. Well, it was great talking with you guys. I'm super happy that you took time out of your day, and look forward to having you down in Rhode Island in a few months. All right.
Yeah, dude, it's going to be great coming out working with you guys.
Yep.
Excited.
Thanks for having us.
Yeah, this was awesome.